Hello, everyone. My name is JD, and we are doing another one of our long distance episodes, so to speak. We have Logan on the phone, and I am donning my Rush Limbaugh, the most dangerous man in America shirt. And I think that we all, anybody on the right and even on the left, knows that on Wednesday, Rush Limbaugh, the great conservative radio broadcaster, passed away. And I mean, even that doesn't do justice to all of the things that Rush did in his life. And certainly, it didn't just stop at broadcasting, it didn't just stop at radio. Really, Rush is, I think, arguably in the top two for the most important conservative figures in modern American history. I don't know about you, Logan, but I would say Rush Limbaugh is really only behind Reagan in the modern conservative movement and in modern American history for conservatism.
Yeah, and I know I was texting you last night after the news of this broke, and I'm pretty sure I had Reagan and Rush, I think, is the two top modern conservatives. And really, even as I reflect on it, if Rush Limbaugh isn't number one, because after Reagan came in and put in so many conservative policies and changed the landscape, it was Rush Limbaugh that articulated that for the next 33 years and carried that on for 33 years. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely the close first and second, and I mean, it's two really totally different animals. Whenever you get in there, and that's why, at least for me, I don't know, how you would call that race, so to speak, because you have Reagan, who's physically elected the president of the United States, the highest office in the land, destroys Soviet communism, on the world scale. And I mean, of course, has the effect of his presidency that carries well into the 90s, at least economically, throughout the H.W. Bush and the Clinton era. But then you also have Rush Limbaugh, who has carried on cultural warfare, so to speak, against the left for over 30 years on a nationally syndicated radio show, primarily on the AM dial,
Yeah,
and who has been articulating conservative positions for over 30 years. I mean, they're two totally different beasts, so to speak, and like I said, top two, I mean, is Reagan and Rush Limbaugh, whichever one you think, is more so. You can have that argument. I would, I guess, just put the edge to Reagan, since he was elected president and everything, and destroyed the Soviet Union. Um, but I mean, Rush on a daily basis did everything that was just as important as Reagan did for advancing conservative principles. I would say, if you're going to build a Mount Rushmore, no pun intended, so to speak, of modern American conservative figures, I mean, I would say the top four would probably be Reagan, Limbaugh, William F. Buckley, and maybe Milton Friedman,
yeah,
perhaps. That those would probably be your top four
yeah.
in modern American history for conservatives.
And even for people that just feel like, maybe he even just had a radio show for that long, the proof is out there of just how large his influence was, given that he was made an honorary member of the 1994 Congress.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever the Republicans, stormed back, into Congress and had landslide elections there in '94, yeah, he was named an honorary member of the Republican Congress. And really, and we've said this before, I believe this was after the inaugural, or not the inaugural, the State of the Union, where Rush got the his medal, whenever Trump awarded him his medal. Um, in that Rush was a really big influence, especially for me. I've listened to Rush since I was 12 or 13. I really started listening to him, I would say, in the 2 months prior to the 2012 election. Um, and so, I mean, I was only about 13 at that time. And so I've listened to him, all the way up through until now. And I mean, that's a long time to be hearing a voice. I mean, especially as you're growing up, to be hearing a voice of somebody on the radio, and to always have them there to offer their thoughts.
Yeah, and really, you can go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I mean, really, you can probably credit not only our conservatism, but the conservatives across the nation, really, because Rush was almost the founding member of this modern conservative movement, which has given Glenn Beck's and Mark Levin's, and so many others.
Yeah, exactly. Without Rush Limbaugh paving the way, the thing is that, and I mean, this predates even me, but what a lot of people don't realize, because they were too young, I mean, their opinions of Limbaugh, and I'm not even going to get into the disgusting crap on Twitter. Um, that can be reserved for future episodes or something. But I mean, people, young people don't know because they've never even lived it, and or they were too young to even know it. If they're like under the age of 40, that I mean, used to, you basically had three news networks that everyone got their news from, and that was ABC, NBC, and like CBS. Rush Limbaugh single-handedly, and this is one man. This isn't a company. This isn't a team of people. This is one singular person destroyed that media monopoly and basically paved the way for what is terminized alternative media today. Without Rush Limbaugh doing that, you don't have Fox News in the mid 90s. Because a little trivia fact for you, Rush's show that he did in the mid 90s, who was it produced by? It was
Roger.
produced by, yeah, Roger Ailes produced it. Without Rush Limbaugh, you don't have Fox News. Without the likes of Fox News has, or they had their place. They've gotten away from what they were supposed to be. But Fox News had its place in culture, despite its flaws. But without Rush, you don't have Fox. You don't have outlets that you're seeing spring up now, like The Blaze that Glenn Beck started back in 2011. You don't have the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro. Even if you didn't listen to Rush, even if you're somebody who says that you don't listen to a whole lot of conservative talking heads, you don't listen to a lot of conservative personalities. I mean, consider where do you get your news from? I mean, I imagine if you're a conservative, you're not sitting around reading the Washington Post. If you are, I mean, Godspeed to you. I don't know how you're still a conservative, but I mean, think of where you get your news. Those would not exist. Those online sources of news would not exist without Rush Limbaugh. You wouldn't have the Glenn Becks or the Mark Levins or the Ben Shapiros, the Stephen Crowders, the Candace Owens, the Matt Walshes, the Michelle Malkins of the conservative movement. You wouldn't have the Sean Hannitys or the Bill O'Reillys.
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh pioneered all of that in an amazing fashion.
It's incredible, really, to think back on it, and to think about everything. The media, for people like you and me, the media that we know today and that we watch and we listen to, he is the man that created it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just so disheartening. Whenever you see the things that people say about him, um, given the other personal stories of people and the generosity that Rush had and the type of person that he was.
Yeah.
And Steven Crowder put out a tweet the other day, which I think is true in the sense that he said something to the effect of, for all you guys getting upset about the things that liberals are saying about Rush dying, I'm sure that he would have no greater pleasure than to know that he got under liberal skin this much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very, very true. He spent 33 years fighting for America and conservatism, patriotism, and the idea that you can go from nothing into something because he lived that.
Yeah.
People who say, you watch these stupid BuzzFeed videos about, the meritocracy of America and, why it's a lie and why you can never break ahead in class. And Rush Limbaugh is an example of that. He was rejected. He faced so many firings and rejections and the classic tales of people, some of the most famous musicians and actors and writers and media personalities and stuff. People along the way have told them that they are no good and that they need to find something else to do because they will never make it in this industry. And Rush Limbaugh is another example of that, of a person who was told that. But over the course of time, he built himself into the most influential, the most consequential media figure, I think, in American history. And I don't think it's going to be close for a long time.
No, it probably won't, and I'm not even sure that you'll ever really get someone to fill those shoes.
No.
Obviously, I mean, you have a group of conservatives right now that need to rise up and really be louder because he was the loudest voice. So to collectively, I guess, attempt to be louder, to attempt to fill that void for the need for conservative ideas to be articulated, but you'll never really fill that void.
The thing was about Rush, and Mark Levin said this, is that the more desperate that things got, the worse that things got. And like over the course of the last 4 months since the election, and I found this true of myself as well, is you found yourself wondering, I wonder what Rush thinks. I wonder what his take on the news is. And you found yourself tuning in to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since he announced that he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Yeah.
But he had this uncanny knack of being able to just cut, and nobody else in media has this today. Rush had the ability to make things that were extremely complex very simple so that normal people could understand it. And not in a way that was condescending or talking down to people. Whenever you tuned into Rush and what many people are finding out is that whenever you listen to Rush, you felt like you were having a conversation with him. Like you were sitting and talking with him over lunch or dinner or coffee. You never felt like he was talking down to you. And even though, he had his performance and his act, and he talked about this, the whole talent on loan from God. All of that is a performance. It's all for laughs. It's all part of the entertainment factor of the program.
Yeah.
But he himself and many people now since he died have said that he really was he was almost shy, really. He was very quiet and just very observant and a very, very good listener to what other people were saying. He wanted to listen to what it was that other people were telling him.
Yeah.
But he had this uncanny way. He really had his finger on the pulse of what Americans were feeling in a way that nobody else who I can think of in conservative media today has.
No. And something that we were...
had this. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to change the subject if you want to finish up your point.
Yeah. I mean, he just had his thumb just right on the pulse of what people were feeling. And while other people were saying other things and they disagreed on what they thought was going to happen and how people were going to react, more often than not, Rush turned out to be the one that was right.
Yeah.
Rush, for some reason, just had a sense, and he knew how people were going to react. And I think one of the most recent prolific examples is Donald Trump being elected as president.
Yeah. Well, something that I noticed, and I saw the headline, and I think it was on Fox News or something like that, and they hit the headline of Rush Limbaugh beat cancel culture throughout his career. And I was thinking about it, and in a way, Rush Limbaugh almost, for the left, invented cancel culture. He's almost the reason that Media Matters has been created.
Yeah, and there are so many left-wing media corporations and websites and blogs and stuff that if not for Rush Limbaugh, they would not exist.
Yeah. So it's just incredible.
He single-handedly was able to save the AM dial, which I know has been said many times before, but that's why he's always stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
AM radio, whenever he was coming in, people were saying that, AM is going to die out because you have FM.
Yeah.
And that AM, there's no future in it. And you can't do a national show. You have to do radio in local markets because people want things local. And then at that time, you also had the fairness doctrine from the Kennedy era, to where if you had one point of view, then you had to have the other point of view on public broadcasts like that.
Mm.
But he was able to break through in such a fantastic way, and in a way that will never be replicated. And it really makes him a legend and an icon, not just of conservatism, but of media in general.
Yeah, and speaking to him saving the AM band, just to put that in perspective, in Europe and all around the world, AM radio is not in their vehicles. They don't even have AM radios around the world.
Yeah.
That is an American exclusive now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore over there in any of their vehicles or anything. I want to read just a couple of excerpts from Rush's transcripts from December 23rd. This was his last broadcast of 2020. And where do I want to start? Well, he says, I want to go back. Normally, by the way, I wait until the third hour of the program. I've always said that I usually use the Christmas program, such as this one, to engage in my thank yous and my thankfulness for the year rather than at Thanksgiving, and I don't know why. There's something about Christmas, my childhood memories of it, the families getting together, and the children making it what it was. My feelings of thankfulness always surface. My feelings of great gratitude always surface at the Christmas time of year, and it's no different this year. Now, in January of this year, toward the end of the month, I received there's something I want to say about it. Stage 4, advanced lung cancer, terminal diagnosis. The objective of everybody involved was to extend life for as long as possible, as enjoyably as possible. Now, many of you have been through this. Lots of you have been through this as individuals, as families, and you know what that means. Medical treatment that is designed to attack the disease as greatly as possible while maintaining a quality of life that makes it worth it. Some people can't deal with the side effects of chemo or other forms of treatment. Well, back in late January, when I received this diagnosis, and I was shocked, I was stunned, and I was in denial for about a week. I mean, I'm Rush Limbaugh. I'm Mr. Bigwig of the vast right-wing conspiracy. I mean, I'm indestructible. I said this can't be right, but it was. What I didn't know at the time that I later learned in the course of the year was that I wasn't expected to be alive today. I wasn't expected to make it to October, and then to November, and then to December, and yet here I am. Today I've got some problems, but I'm feeling pretty good today. God's with me today. God knows how important this program is to me today, and I'm feeling natural in terms of energy, normal in terms of energy. And I'm feeling entirely capable of doing it today. And that was something that in the last year since he had his diagnosis that he never talked about before, and that was his faith. He, for as long as I can remember, as long as I've listened to him, before this diagnosis, he never really divulged or delved much into faith.
No.
Or religious beliefs before this point.
It was always maybe something said in a vague passing.
Yeah, it was always something mentioned in passing, but after this point, after that diagnosis is whenever there was kind of a pivot point, and he began to open up a little bit about it, which I think is natural whenever you receive a diagnosis like that is terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that you have an expiration date now, and that every moment the clock is ticking. And so there was something really interesting, and he goes into a little bit about Lou Gehrig, and he had told this story a couple times on air. That whenever Lou Gehrig announced his disease, which then came to be known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and that he was retiring from baseball, he said, "Today I feel like the luckiest man on the face of the earth." And, Rush talked about how he never understood that. He never understood, how can you say that? You're sentenced to death, and how can you... I just don't understand, How can you say that you're the luckiest man on the face of the earth? And he said, well, when I got my diagnosis, and when I began to receive all of the outpouring of love and affection from everywhere in my life, from so many of you, in so many ways, and from my family, even during the times when it would have been understandable for them to say, Rush who? We don't know this guy. But that never happened. I've been totally supported by virtually everybody in my family. I've been propped up. I've been defended. I've been made to look better than I am. And all of this has been to my benefit and yours. It's for the benefit of people who are the recipients of our efforts. So many people have put me first in all this, and I now understand what Lou Gehrig meant. Because I certainly feel like that. I feel extremely fortunate and lucky. Rush always expressed how grateful he was for his audience. And on this same day, on December 23rd, his last broadcast in 2020, he said, "You don't have any idea how. I know so many people think this program has changed their lives for the better. You have no idea what you all have meant to me and my family. The day's going to come, folks, where I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't know when that is. I want to be able to do it for as long as I want to do it. I want to, but the day will come when I'm not going to be able to. And I want you to understand that even when the day comes, I'd like to be here. Because I have this sense of needing to constantly show my appreciation for all that you have done and meant to me." And, then he wishes his audience a Merry Christmas and off into 2021. Rush Limbaugh, it would have been very easy for him to become arrogant, to become condescending, with an audience of over 20 million people a week. Would have been very easy, because the people who you see on news, on cable news, they average what? 7 million people? 10 million people a week? Here's Rush Limbaugh doubling their audience size, and their size is considered large. There's 20 million people listening to him, and he always expressed how grateful he was for each and every person who listened. He, as I said before, had a way of making you feel like he was talking directly to you. He had a way of making it seem like you were the only person in his audience. And despite what, anybody who's a loyal listener, despite anybody who's had a career launched off the back of Rush Limbaugh or had a personal connection to him, as hard as it is for us now going forward and dealing with this loss on so many levels, on personal levels, on professional levels, on ideological levels, and just top down. I think what's falling through the cracks here is him being unable, in the time leading up to his passing, being unable to be on the air. I think that's something that I don't think I've heard anyone really consider, is him being unable to be on the air, and what that was like for him.
Yeah, and I was about to bring that up, really, and that he was able to be on the air close to his passing, but it was for the last few weeks now that he wasn't able to be on the air, and that there was...
It was about 2 weeks, I think, from, because his last on-air appearance, I think, was the 2nd.
And there were even instances to where he would be there for maybe 1 or 2 hours, and would leave, and there would be somebody else to fill in the final hour or two.
Yeah, there were times to where that happened as well. But also, I mean, really, I think one of the most telling things about his respect for his audience is that nobody knew this until 11 Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, whenever he goes on the air. And his wife, Catherine, announces that he's passed. In a world saturated with social media and media leaks and all of these things, on the radio, on AM radio, on his show, is whenever that's announced.
And that blew up within minutes.
Yeah. I mean, that was instantly breaking news because, you have your Media Matters type sites who just sit there with Rush on in the background, just waiting to put up their post for the day about what Rush Limbaugh said.
Yeah.
And that was breaking news immediately, and it certainly was a sad day, and it still is for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you look
kind of like what I talked about, just on the variety of levels. Whether people knew Rush personally, whether they had ever even called in or written, or were just a lifelong listener, or had only listened for a couple of years. Had only started listening since Trump was elected, or whatever it might be. It's sad and heartbreaking for people just all the way up and down the list. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what you were just saying, however you knew him on so many levels, and we're looking, and we're mourning the loss, and we're mourning the loss of such a great leader and such a large voice. But I also feel like it's a time to give thanks for everything that he did, and for how far he really took this movement, and how far and how many lives he's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, the contributions he made to the conservative movement are irreplaceable. Like, they're priceless.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever capacity it is that people knew him, I would say that if at the very least, if it doesn't, if whenever you heard about this yesterday, wherever you were, because honestly, I found out about it probably about 5 minutes or so after it would have been announced. It was probably only about 11:15 or 11:20, and I just so happened to pull up Twitter, and it was already being tweeted out by news sources and everything. But however you interacted or however you knew Rush, I think that if you say that at the very least you weren't at least a little misty-eyed whenever you heard about it yesterday, then you're probably lying. But like I said, he's had a tremendous impact on so many people and on us, honestly. And was one of the reasons, one of the inspirations for like this channel, and for a lot of people. Like I said, so many media sources wouldn't exist if not for him. So many.
Yeah.
Alternative media would basically not exist if not for Rush Limbaugh, and anybody who is a conservative voice on YouTube or wherever else, they probably wouldn't exist either.
Yep.
at least not in the capacity that we know them.
Yeah, and we're not only talking the big conservative voices, you're talking about the smaller conservative voices, the channels like this, and you can get outside of those channels and the people out there in the world, working men and women who have had their lives changed by him and have had their viewpoints completely changed by him over the years. It's incredible his impact and how many people he's touched.
Yeah. Um, you had mentioned yesterday. Um, I I subscribe and I get the Limbaugh letter, and you had mentioned yesterday that you kind of thought, with thumbing through it, because I haven't read it yet for this month because it's February's issue and I haven't gotten to reading it, but that it almost seems almost like a letter to his audience about all of this.
Yes, and actually, I've come to discover now through listening to the clips and reading that the opening letter, a large portions of it is from that December 23rd broadcast
Yeah,
that you were just actually reading excerpts from.
yeah.
A large portion of that was from it.
It's I don't know how to really even put it in words. But I think that the magnitude of the loss that we have just suffered is going to become evident over time. I don't. It's going to take a while before we really realize the magnitude of what it is that we've just lost.
I think that you probably won't even see it or realize it until the next election cycle.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think to wrap up, since we've gone so long, I think Mark Stein he had a statement that he released yesterday uh, in the wake of all this, and one of his closing remark, which I've heard a lot now, so I don't know if people are just ripping that off or what, is that Rush's famous quote, talent on loan from God, and Mark Stein said, well, I'd like to propose an addendum to that, and that is talent returned to God. And so there's, I mean, I could probably sit here for for over an hour talking about this, but perhaps in the future, um, we'll talk about this more and it'll be discussed. But Rush Limbaugh is going to be sorely missed, um, not only among his personal friends, not only among his listeners, but for the conservative movement as a whole. Even if you never listen to a second of his show, and you listen to other younger conservative voices, the Ben Shapiro's or the like, he had an undeniable influence and undeniable impact and paved the way for every single conservative that you see with a platform today. So, is there anything you want to say in closing?
Not in particular. You know, his influence we will probably continue to talk about for years on top of years to come,
Yeah,
and recall great things that he has said and great points that he has made. So
yeah. So, with that, I mean, this has been another kind of weird episode, in the sense that, um, for one, we're not in studio like normal, and I didn't really want to put all the bells and whistles and all the fanfare that normally accompanies one of our WireTap episodes. Um, So with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.